Are you sick of girls no-showing every time you set up a date? Do girls not hit you back when you DM on Tinder? Well, it's because you're not a star on your tracks and your vocals need to sound better. Stay tuned, I'm going to show you exactly how you can get your game up, and the girls will be calling your phone non-stop. All right, today we're talking about Nectar. But before I go ahead and go all through what you need to know about this plugin and why you'd even want to use this plugin, let me just go ahead and play the song. It's called Fuck Love by Rel Bay. It's a song we produced, mixed, and mastered here at Radium by the team. So without further ado, check it out.
Fuck love, fuck love. Fuck love, fuck love. Farewell to someone I used to love. See, I know deep down inside I couldn't trust her. I gave you chance after chance. You said you didn't wanna love no more. You said you didn't wanna fuck no more. Oh no, oh no. So I say fuck love, I'm tired of fighting. Fuck love, I'm tired of trying. Fuck every moment in my mind when I just think about it. Fuck love, fuck love, fuck love. Fuck love, fuck love, fuck love. So I say fuck love, I'm tired of fighting. Fuck love, I'm tired of trying. Fuck every moment in my mind when I just think about it. Fuck love, fuck love, fuck love. Fuck love, fuck love, fuck love. Don't mind me if my feelings are...
All right, so what I'm going to do is show you how you can use Nectar to get similar results just using one plugin to do what 10 plugins would do. And this thing is just an amazing plugin, technology above its time, ahead of its time. When it comes to competition, Izotope is known for beating them out, for doing things that none of the other guys have done yet. So they are kind of trend-setting and exploring new ground with all their plugins, and Nectar is no different. They're using AI technology to be able to mix your vocals and get you a vocal tone right away. And before I get even deeper into what Nectar can do, I'm just going to show you what that sounds like. So I'm going to pull up his raw vocals.
Well, to someone I used to love, I gave you chance.
All right, here's a good spot. Here's Nectar right here. If you go up top, you see Vocal Assistant. Click the assist. There's two options here. You have assist and unmask. Unmask is for basically your whole entire mix. Using other Izotope plugins, you can send the signal of those plugins directly to this Nectar plugin, and you'll be able to basically tell Izotope what frequencies to avoid so that the vocal can cut through the mix. And that's what that unmask feature is. Assist is the AI doing its thing to basically get your vocals to sound a finished mix state. So let's go ahead and go with assist here, hit next. You have three different options on vibes. You have vintage, which is, going to be more blues, rock and roll, and anything more analog based. You have modern, which is going to be top 40, hip hop, pop music, anything that's going to be a very upfront sound and a very clean, clear sound. And then lastly, you have dialogue here. If you're not even doing music, you're doing vocals, you're doing voiceover, you're doing anything where it's just, kind of a vocal by itself. This dialogue option is a great option so that you can get, a vocal that is upfront and obviously usable for things like post. But today we're going to go ahead and go with modern here. You have intensity next. You have light, moderate, and aggressive. This has to do with pretty much what I imagine is how much the AI is going to compensate. So for the most part, what I hear between these intensities is a huge change in compression. So aggressive, I'm hearing a lot of compression, obviously more EQ and more of all the other effects that it's going to apply. But let's go ahead and go with moderate now, and I'm going to hit next, and then I'm just going to play the vocal.
I gave you chance after chance. You said you didn't wanna love no more. You said you didn't wanna fuck no more. No. So I say fuck love, I'm tired of fighting. Fuck love, I'm tired of trying. Fuck every moment in my mind when I just think about it. Fuck love, fuck love, fuck love. I say fuck love, I'm tired of fighting. Fuck love, I'm tired of trying. Fuck every moment in my...
So here's the EQ response and some of the other plugins you use. The de-esser here, another EQ, as well, compressor, and it has some reverb here as well. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that reverb. What I'm going to go ahead and do is play it against the vocal tone that we got on the record. I use obviously outboard gear. I had, real hardware pieces in there, as well as some plugins that I'm not going to go ahead and get into. But we're going to show you where Izotope gets you versus what, a true professional mixing engineer like myself and the rest of us here at Radium Media can get the vocals to. So to make this fair, I'm going to go ahead and put all the effects on and just kind of play this back with the same effects, reverb, delay. There's a little bit of spread on the vocals as far as there's like a doubling effect on it to make it kind of wider. But I'm just going to go ahead and play the original first, and then we're going to see where Nectar got us. I'm interested because, I haven't really done this and shot it out. So I'm going to go ahead and play it, and we'll see.
Farewell to someone I used to love.
All right, so that is the professionally mixed one, and here's the AI mixed version.
Farewell to someone I used to love.
Okay, that's interesting. I think it would be fun if we went ahead and took back to the assistant here and put it on more aggressive. Let's see what it can do for that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. I'm going to find a spot where the vocal is constant.
I gave you chance after chance. You said you didn't want to love no more. You said you didn't want to fuck no more. No. So I say fuck love, I'm tired of fighting. Fuck love, I'm tired of trying. Fuck every moment in my mind when I just think about it. Fuck love, fuck love, fuck love. I gave you chance after chance. You said you didn't want to love no more. You said you didn't want to fuck no more.
Ooh, that's taking up my CPU. Okay. Well, this is the mix session, so there's a lot more plugins on this session. But let's do another shootout now that we have the aggressive. So first, we're going to start with the professionally mixed vocal.
See, I know deep down inside I couldn't trust her.
All right, let's compare that to the AI vocal, which is on the aggressive setting now, so you can really hear it.
See, I know deep down inside I couldn't trust her. I gave you chance after chance.
So as you can see, the plugin's not going to get, exactly to what, a professional engineer like myself can get the vocal to, but it's a great starting place. So let's just go through some of the different options here and some of the things that Nectar did and explain what's going on. So to start off, we have a pitch module, which is not being used. His vocal has been meldined, so it's already been taken through, note by note pitch correction versus auto-tune, which is what this pitch module is. On this pitch module, you have a bunch of options similar to auto-tune. You can choose the register here, choose the key, correction, strength, and speed, which has to do with the reaction of the algorithm. So you kind of have a built-in auto-tune, which is really good for someone who is just getting into plugins, doesn't have auto-tune, and needs a plugin that can hit every bass, and this is one of those plugins. Next, you have a gate module here, which is also not being used, so I can turn it on. This could be helpful especially if you're doing any sort of live broadcast, or if you're doing anything with maybe you're doing a session with multiple instrument players playing in the same room with the vocalist. You can use this gate to clear out all those other background instruments. And it's pretty simple here. It just has attack, release, ratio, and you have some open and close settings here. Pretty simple stuff. We're not going to use that either. The next thing that Nectar AI assisted with is it went ahead and did some EQ here. It pulled out some 269. This is kind of the, I guess, getting to the lower body of the voice around there. So it's pulled out a little bit of body, something I probably wouldn't do if I was trying to, you know, give some oomph to his voice. You have a 785 cut here. This is trying to get rid of some nasal out of the, you know, the singer's voice, Rel here. Next after that, you have some 2875. Now this is kind of getting into his fundamental of his voice. So this is like, you know, what makes him up front on the track. So I necessarily wouldn't cut that either. And then here you have some 9,144. Now this is kind of brilliance. This is kind of getting into anywhere from 7 to 10K to 12K. Sometimes you'll get a lot of sibilance depending on if you're female and what, you know, female, male, or if you're in a, you know, a certain register that you're singing in. So it's, I guess it's finding that the voice is a little more brilliant and it's pulling out some of that. And then we have the de-esser here, which is set to 4,000, 4.3K. And let's see how much it's taking out.
See, I know deep down inside I couldn't trust her.
So I'm seeing it's probably taking anywhere from 3 to 8 dB of S-ing out at 4 and above, 4.3K and above. This is pretty typical. I typically like my de-essers a little bit higher. And that's just so that it doesn't cut into the fundamental and that you're really just getting that sharpness out. But that's cool. That's fine. And then here we have some additive EQ and a little bit more cutting. It's shelving, low shelf. At 130, I typically start at 100, but, you know, 130 is not too bad. And then we have basically a low cut, high pass filter here at 60, which is cool. That's a good spot. That's kind of where you're getting rid of rumble, pretty much rumble in the voice, which is, you know, depending on, you know, the recording environment. If you're recording in a, you know, a bedroom, or if you're recording even in a studio that doesn't have like thick walls between the vocal booth, you'll get a lot of low end into your vocal. So this is something you absolutely want to do. And then got a 600, not doing anything on that 600. 1700 is boosting. That's, you know, kind of right around an octave. It's basically basically a lower octave of the fundamental of the voice, which is going to be anywhere from 24 to maybe 36 kilohertz. And then we have a 28 boost here. I'm sure this is kind of boosting the fundamental. You have a 5K boost here. Basically what this is doing is adding a little bit more cut to his voice. And this is kind of, you know, a higher octave of that fundamental. And then it's shelving 16K, adding some air. So actually, to keep it honest, Izotope is doing a lot of EQ and a lot of small moves, except for this one. This is obviously 4 dB. This is 2.5, and some of these are small moves, some of them aren't. But I can say with the aggressive setting, it is doing a lot of EQ. A lot of it, in my opinion, is a little bit contradictory, like this cut at 28 and then this boost here at 28. So there's a dB boost and then the 2 dB cut. So those are kind of clashing. Those are basically, you know, cutting and boosting. I'm really surprised that the assistant is doing that. Kind of a weird idea there. I wouldn't do that because it adds more phase, adds more weird computery tone to the vocal. Next you have a compressor here on the vocal. Let's go ahead and play and see what it's doing on that compressor.
I gave you chance after chance. You said you didn't want to know no more.
So it's doing anywhere from 6 to 10 dB of gain reduction, which is heavy gain reduction on vocals. You know, depending on what you're doing with the vocal, if you're doing voiceover or if you're doing rap and you want to sound like Big Sean and have like an overly compressed tone, maybe you do 10 dB. But on a singer like this, you kind of want to hear those dynamics. And it has it set to solid state mode and has a very, very fast attack. This is too fast. So right now it's kind of killing the transients of Rel's voice. And then the release is really, really slow. It's at 1200 milliseconds. And then obviously auto makeup gain. And then from there, that's about it. So it just did a little compression, EQ, and de-essing. And then there was a reverb setting that I went ahead and canceled out. We're not going to use Nectar for reverb. But this is really interesting what to see the AI is doing here. This plugin is amazing because you can use the AI as a foundation if you know exactly what you're doing. With a plugin like this, you can use this plugin to basically do everything you'd need as mix engineer to get your vocals to a professional level. And just to go ahead and show you all the other options here, you have delay. If you want to start plugging in effects, you have dimension, which is a widener using doubling. You have a gate, obviously talked about the gate. Harmony. Harmony is a harmonizer, and I can go ahead and show you that a little bit later. It's a really cool plugin. It's for singers who really want to start stacking vocals, or even just for finding a stack, maybe if you want to see if a harmony works out with your voice. You have reverb and you have saturation. This saturation is pretty cool here. You can add some distortion to your voice, get some tube cut if you want. If you don't have a tube microphone and you really want that sound, you have tube here. You have retro, analog, tape, warm, decimate, which is, obviously going to get you really distorted, sounding like guitars. And then you have distort. Decimate you might use if you're trying to go for a Travis Scott effect and you want to sound like a rock guitar. So yeah, this plugin's amazing. As far as taking it to that professional level, this assistant is good for someone who doesn't know what they're doing and they just need someone to do it for them. This plugin can definitely do it. It won't sound amazing, but it'll definitely, go in the right direction. And it can, at least get, some fundamentals taken care of. So, if you're wondering what I would do on this vocal, I would actually take a lot of this out. I found a lot of good frequencies here, but it's just doing too much. And obviously I set it to the aggressive setting. Obviously if I had gone on the light setting, it would do less. But when I did the moderate, it just didn't seem to compete with the vocal, and I was trying to give Nectar here the edge. But to talk about some of these other modules before I really start chopping this thing up, let's go ahead and demonstrate the harmony, because I think that's really cool and it's really important, especially on a singer, for using this plugin, because it can give you some ideas. So check it out.
Fuck love, I'm tired of trying. Fuck love, I'm tired of trying. Fuck every moment in my mind when I just think about it. Fuck love, fuck love, fuck love.
So what you have here is kind of a 2D kind of grid here where you can start putting things. Obviously, if I push it up, it's changing the gain, the volume essentially. And then if I take it left or right, it's changing the pan. So you can start adding as many as you want to this pile. You can create a ton of harmonies and, really chorus yourself out or make yourself sound like a choir with just this one plugin. If you want like a weird Bon Iver effect, this plugin is a go-to, because you can add all those stacks and all those octaves. So some of the settings you have, obviously, if you saw, I was figuring out if I wanted to do, different harmonies at which point, maybe like a third, a sixth here. And then obviously you can go down. So minus the third, minus the sixth, or a below octave. Let's just show you what that sounds like.
Fuck love, I'm tired of trying. Fuck every moment in my mind when I just think about it. Fuck.
So yeah, you have some options here. You can just those options alone, you can really do a lot. But also you have time variation, which kind of sets off how the harmony plays back versus the dry. So if you want to kind of have a spread feel, this is like a really cool way to have a spread feel using this time variation. You have a pitch variation, which is set to 20%. Basically, this pitch variation is going to detune it a little bit to help the vocal spread out a little bit more, and sound a little bit thicker, because it's not perfectly in pitch. So like I said, you can really play with this thing. You have pans, delays, fine gain, all sorts of stuff to really chorus yourself out and make you sound like a huge, crazy alien spaceship choir. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's what you want to sound like. But it is 2020, so anything's cool. Anything goes. I'm just going to show you this dimension real quick. You have a flanger, phaser, chorus. Really, when I think of this type of stuff, chorus is kind of the classic. Flanger is, if you want like kind of a Bryson Tiller effect on your ad-libs, this is a really cool one to do it with. And then phaser, also this is, very popular sound. Maybe not so much with vocals, but you can definitely use a phaser on vocals. And then chorus is really where it's at, in this plugin for me. But yeah, you have your typical controls. If you're used to using guitar pedals, then you'll be super used to this. You have feedback, depth, and rate. So yeah, really cool that that's built in. I don't typically use the effects in this plugin, but you know, I have a lot of plugins with really great effects. I'm pretty blessed to have, you know, all sorts of choices when it comes to effects. So I don't really need to use this, but yeah, let's just talk about you know, some of the things that, you know, Nectar's definitely getting wrong. I've kind of went over this. I wouldn't be cutting this low end right here, so let's just start deleting stuff. You don't need that. That's this 2800. This is the fundamental. I wouldn't cut the fundamental unless that was a huge issue. This right here is great. This is we can take this down even a little bit more, maybe -4. And let's widen up the Q here. So this is what I do on a vocal. I definitely cut this nasal. Nasal is really annoying and terrible to listen to. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play the vocal.
See, I know. See, I know. Down inside, I couldn't trust her. I gave you chance after chance. You said you didn't want to know no more. You said you did.
So yeah, I mean, I found 774. It was at 784. It's such a small move. I mean, really, Izotope got it. You know, got the nasal frequency. Good job, Izotope. This 10K right here, this is brilliance. I wouldn't really get rid of that. There is a de-esser here, so if I need to catch S's, I got it. Some other options here with this is you have this follow frequency. This is a really cool thing that most plugins don't really do. There's a couple other ones out there that can follow a frequency, but just to show you exactly what I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on.
I know deep down inside I couldn't trust her. I gave you chance after chance. You said you didn't want to know no more.
So if you see what it's doing, it's basically tracking the frequency as it moves in the frequency spectrum. So if the box, you know, the higher he sings, that nasal frequency is going to go higher as well. So it's going to track him upwards and downwards if he's singing up or low, you know, higher or lower. Also, you have this dynamics option. This makes this EQ into basically a multi-band compressor. If you want to see it, an option here.
I know deep down inside I couldn't trust her.
And so what that does is make it a time-dependent EQ. Basically, whenever there's a lot of buildup of that frequency, and you can tell it when by this threshold here, at which dB level this EQ will kick in and start to delete some of that nasal frequency. So as you can see, this thing can really do a lot just as an EQ. You know, a lot of this is just a little bit crazy for me. So I wouldn't be cutting that frequency, that 300. That's kind of the more so the body of his voice that's getting the body range. This 600 right here, this is kind of the boxiness. This is really a good one to cut. So
I gave you chance after chance. You said you did.
All right, some of this other stuff, 17, definitely, we can boost that, but I'm going to go ahead and take that out for now. I'm just going to basically take it out. And then this 28, that's a good one to boost too if you need it. This 17 also can start to get into the kind of papery range of the voice, so you can make your vocals sound really cheap sounding. And that's the best way for me to explain it. You kind of have to boost that into a vocal to really see it here. I'll just solo it. I tend to find it right at 15, maybe lower, down to 1K potentially, depending on how low or high the singer sings and if he's male or female. And then you have this 5K here. This is a good frequency to boost. I'd push this maybe up to, yeah, 5K. That's, yeah, we'll find it. So yeah, I'm finding it a little more 5.5, and this is kind of that cut, you know what I mean? If you want to sound like Lil Wayne or Drake, that's that Drake Lil Wayne cut. Right there, that's a good one to boost. 16K air frequency, this is really good too. I usually boost this anywhere from 10 to 12, sometimes 16, just depending on if it affects with the zessing, so I kind of experiment when it comes to that. Now this compressor, what I would do here, honestly, is change this to optical. Optical is really good for basically figuring out the transient of the vocal, because it's if you can see, it's based on a light bulb, and it basically reacts to the waveform coming in. So that's how optical works. So this is what I'd use on singers. This is really good for singers. It's not maybe as fast as you'd want it if you were basically doing any rap, but it's good on singers, good on voiceover.
I know deep down inside I couldn't trust.
Now, if you can see, I talked about it before, this release is crazy. So this is way too slow. Depending on how fast you're going, if you're doing some rappy, singy stuff, you might, change this. But I'm going to go ahead and mess around with this release.
See, I know deep down inside I couldn't trust her.
So if you can see with optical, it caps me out at 40 milliseconds on the release. That's fine.
See, I know deep down inside I couldn't trust her.
And I do anywhere from 3 to 6 dB of gain reduction. But yeah, I hope that's a good overview of Nectar here. That I just went through every plugin. I did what I would do on it. If you really want to hear more about Nectar, you should check out my vocal mixing tutorial. I basically take this plugin, and from a scratch point, I mix a vocal, go module per module, and I go over all the different frequencies and things in the voice and how I would approach it, from a professional mixing engineer's perspective, to get the vocal to that professional level using one plugin, and that's Nectar. And I highly recommend it if you want to get into mixing and you want to really sound like the songs that are on the radio, to sound like Kanye, Drake, Ariana Grande, whoever it is. Using my tutorial, I'm going to go over it and how you could get there. So make sure to click in the link in the bio to check out the tutorial. All right, guys, so that was Izotope Nectar. I hope you learn a bunch of stuff about it, and make sure to stay tuned, check in, tap in, hit the sub notification bell, subscribe, and follow us for all the new plugin of the weeks. And if you haven't seen all the old stuff, go check it out. We dropped a bunch of good stuff, so stay tuned.